I rise in support of all of the career foreign service officers whose nominations have been held up in the chamber until there is a crisis somewhere in the world, until there is a presidential or a vice presidential trip to some part of the world that suddenly demands our attention, and then, miraculously, holds are lifted and nominees are approved. On a Thursday, Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 crashed in eastern Ukraine. On the following Monday, the Senate confirmed Michael Lawson as the U.S. ambassador to the International Civil Aviation Organization. He had been pending before the Senate. His first day on the job, his first time meeting his colleagues, he was forced to grapple with this crisis. In the last week or 10 days, 2 more plane crashes have occurred in Taiwan and in Mali, an Algerian plane. Random events around the world cannot determine when the Senate acts on nominees. We cannot continue to follow a policy of confirmation by crisis. It took the president to travel to Saudi Arabia, an important ally, and the vice president to travel to Chile for the Senate to confirm the nominees to those countries. In the case of Chile, Ambassador Hammer was taken to his new office in Santiago for his first day on the job on Air Force Two because the Senate approved his nomination just before the vice president was to visit Chile. Madam President, it shouldn't require flying on Air Force Two to get to your posting for your first day of work as a United States ambassador. Take the case of our ambassador to Qatar. She waited for months, and then Bergdahl was exchanged for 5 Guantanamo detainees released to Qatar, and suddenly she was approved. It almost required the president to be wheels up on Air Force One on his way to Riyadh before we confirmed an ambassador to Saudi Arabia. I repeat, the criteria for confirming nominees should not be determined by a sudden, just-breaking crisis with the urgent need to fill a vacant post. Confirmation by crisis is not a strategy, and it is not in the national security interests of the United States. Now, the Foreign Relations Committee has moved judiciously in some cases with record-setting speed to confirm nominees. In the face of obstructionism on the floor of the Senate, the committee has proven that bipartisanship is not only possible, but it can thrive when American national security interests are put first. And it's my view that we must lift up our ambassadors and their families, not put them down. These individuals are serving our nation, and their families are sacrificing for our nation. They deserve better. Our career foreign service officers serve Democratic and Republican presidents, and they should not, must not, be treated as political pawns. We cannot continue to allow the pulpits where we preach American values to remain vacant. No nation can listen to us if we're not present to speak for ourselves. American leadership can only occur if American leaders are present on the international stage. And the Senate standoff that has left so many career foreign service nominees in political and personal limbo is damaging our credibility, undermining our national security, and it has to end now. So I rise today for the career ambassadors who have not gotten the decency of a vote in the Senate, career ambassadors who are waiting along with their families for months, some more than a year, to take their post. They're trapped on the executive calendar, unable to assume their appointed post because the leadership on the Republican side has chosen to hold them hostage as a political tool. They have consciously chosen a strategy to do nothing, pass nothing, approve nothing, and leave key diplomatic posts unfilled for months, threatening national security and our ability to conduct foreign policy. So, Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the following nominees, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nominations. Calendar number 524, Adam Scheinman to be a special representative of the President for nuclear nonproliferation with the rank of ambassador. Calendar number 533, Karen Stanton to be the ambassador to the Republic of Timor-Leste. Calendar number 536, Eric Schultz to be ambassador to the Republic of Zambia. Calendar number 540, Donald Lu to be the ambassador to the Republic of Albania. Calendar number 542, Amy Hyatt to be ambassador to the Republic of Palau. Calendar number 544, John Hoover to be the ambassador to the Republic of Sierra Leone. Calendar number 546, Matthew Harrington to be the ambassador to the Kingdom of Lesotho. Calendar number 548, Thomas Dalton to be the ambassador to Namibia. Calendar number 637, Arnold Chacon to be Director General of the Foreign Service. Calendar number 696, Luis Moreno to be ambassador to Jamaica. Calendar number 699, Maureen Cormack to be the ambassador to Bosnia and Herzegovina. Calendar number 707, Linda Thomas Greenfield, an Assistant Secretary of State of African Affairs, to be a member of the Board of Directors of the African Development Foundation. Calendar number 898, Ted Ozius to be ambassador to the Republic of Vietnam. Calendar 902, Gentry Smith to have the rank of ambassador as the director of the Office of Foreign Missions. Calendar number 927, Leslie Bassett to be the ambassador to Paraguay. Calendar number 953, George Albert Crow to be ambassador to the Republic of Kazakhstan. Calendar number 954, Marcia Stephens Bloom Bernacat to be the ambassador to the People's Republic of Bangladesh. Calendar number 955, James D. Pettit to be ambassador to the Republic of Moldova. Calendar number 956, John R. Bass to be ambassador to the Republic of Turkey. Calendar number 957, Alan Mustard to be ambassador to Turkmenistan. Calendar number 958, Todd Robinson to be ambassador to the Republic of Guatemala. Calendar number 961, Erica J. Barks Ruggles to be ambassador to the Republic of Rwanda. Calendar number 962, Brent Robert Hartley to be the ambassador to the Republic of Slovenia. Calendar number 966, Michelle Jean Sisson to be the Deputy Representative of the United States of America to the United Nations with the rank and status of Ambassador and the Deputy Representative of the United States of America in the Security Council of the United Nations. And then finally, calendar 967, Michelle Sisson to be Representative of the United States of America to the sessions of the General Assembly of the United Nations during her tenure of service as a Deputy Representative of the United States of America to the United Nations.
Is there objection? The senator from Wyoming.
I don't think he's finished with his unanimous consent.
Yes, and that there further be, I appreciate that their nominations be confirmed in block, the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, that no further motions be in order to any of the nominations, that any related statements be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate then resume legislative session.
Is there objection?
Madam President,
The senator from Wyoming.
reserving the right to object. We used to pass ambassadors and all kinds of people in block like that, but we have this nuclear option now that the majority chose, and so it takes a little longer to do the whole process, and on that basis, I object.
Objection is heard.
Madam President, you know, I don't know about nuclear options. I do know about national security. When we have objections to some of career ambassadors, I'm not even talking about other nominees who are equally as important to places in the world where we face a challenge. But when I extract those out of the list that are also pending before the Senate in critical places in the world and just say, my God, if a career ambassador, someone who serves under Democratic and Republican administration, has committed their life to the service of our country in the Foreign Service, cannot get to their places, you know, I don't understand. I don't understand how we can actually object to places like Guatemala, where we're having the crisis that we just debated right now. Well, wouldn't it be great to have a U.S. ambassador to Guatemala to direct the Guatemalan government about our concerns about how children are coming here? Wouldn't it be great to have the ambassador to Turkey at a time that we have all of these challenges in the region, where Turkey has a huge number of Syrian refugees? And we say, We object to those. Vietnam, where we are looking at a 1-2-3 nuclear agreement, and where we are concerned about what China is doing in the South China Sea as it ultimately challenges Vietnam in international waters for drilling purposes, and the list goes on and on. So let me at least try some. If I can't do them as a block, let's see if we can get somebody confirmed here at the end of the day to critical positions. So let me ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session to consider this following nomination. Calendar number 968, John Teft to be ambassador to Russia, a career ambassador. Now, imagine if we cannot send a United States ambassador to Russia in the midst of the enormous challenges. So I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session to consider nomination calendar number 968, John Teft, ambassador to Russia, that the nomination be confirmed and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table, that no intervening action or debate, that no further motions be in order to any of that nomination, that any related statement be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and that the Senate then resume legislative session.
Is there objection?
Madam President,
The senator from Wyoming.
this is a procedure that the majority set up, and the majority are going to be stuck with their decision to delay people, thinking that they could speed them up and take away some of the minority rights. So I object.
Objection is heard.
Madam President, this is not a procedure the majority set up. The procedure that is being set up is where career nominees and critical nominees are being held on the floor as a procedure that the Republicans have decided to do. Let me try once again. Let's see whether there's a more important place than Russia. I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nomination. Mark Lippert, the ambassador to South Korea, calendar number 893, that nomination be confirmed, that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, that no further motion be made in order to that nomination, that any related statement be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate then resume legislative business.
Is there objection?
Madam President,
The senator from Wyoming.
this is a political appointment, not a career appointment. If I objected to the career ones, I'd certainly object to the political appointment. I object.
Objection is heard.
It's true that it's a political appointment, but to the Republic of South Korea, at a time that we are facing challenges in the South China Sea, where there is a dispute between China and Korea, where we have critical interests, where we are dealing with North Korea, we can't have an ambassador to South Korea. Let me just say, Madam President, that I could go through a list of critical countries, and it's pretty amazing to me. You know, I have some of my colleagues come to the floor and talk about national security. Well, national security isn't only about having a trigger and a gun. National security is also about having an ambassador in a country to ultimately press our case and our concerns as it relates to our bilateral relationship with that country. So places like Russia, which was objected to, places like South Korea, places like Guatemala, where we're having the crisis, a whole bunch of African countries that were in the career list. We're going to have the African leaders come here next Monday and Tuesday, but we're not going to have ambassadors to a whole bunch of their countries. Career ambassadors to a whole bunch of their countries. That is not in the national interest and security of the United States. And I hope that after having waited quite some time in order to finally get to this point where I felt the necessity to come to the floor and ask for unanimous consent, that instead of the trickle that we occasionally get because there's a crisis and therefore there's a response to the crisis, that we can avoid responding by crisis and having people in places that maybe would help us to ensure that the crisis doesn't take place. And with that, Madam President, I yield the floor.
Would Senator yield for a question?
I'd be happy to yield.
Would the chairman tell us again the name of the ambassador nominated by the president, cleared by the committee, the ambassador to Guatemala?
The gentleman who is nominated, a career nominee to be the ambassador to Guatemala, is Todd D. Robinson.
I would just say to my colleagues, as chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, I've been down in a number of these Central American countries, Mexico, Colombia, Guatemala, Salvador. If there's anybody down there that needs an ambassador, U.S. ambassador down there, it's Guatemala. We see all these young people, not so young people coming up to this country, trying to get into this country. The reason why they're coming up here is because there's no hope, no economic hope, crime, lack of opportunity, and we have no ambassador there. We haven't had an ambassador there for months. And I would just make a plea for the chairman to make a unanimous consent request, if only for the ambassador to Guatemala. And I would just plead with my colleague, my friend from Wyoming, not to object.
I would say to my distinguished colleague from Delaware that I already included the ambassador to Guatemala in my list, and there was objection. If the senator from Wyoming, who I believe is not doing this in his own course but on behalf of his leadership, has an indication that he would accept that, I would be happy to do it, but otherwise I think we'd be further not being able to achieve it.
But, Mr. Again, a question. Would you, one more time, make a unanimous consent request for Todd Robinson?
Surely. I'd ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nomination. Calendar number 958, Todd D. Robinson to be the ambassador to Guatemala. That the nomination be confirmed, that the motion to reconsider be made and laid upon the table, that no intervening action or debate or further motions be in order to that nomination, that any related statements be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate then resume legislative session.
Is there objection?
Madam President, reserving the right to object.
The senator from Wyoming.
We have been through this nomination and the others before, and there is a procedure that we've set up that's recognized now by both sides, but that our side feels forced into because of the nuclear option, that the other side broke the rules in order to change the rules. And the way that works, the majority leader is still the one that has every power in this body, except Congressional Review Acts, and he hasn't chosen to bring these up in the normal order. Instead, asking to bring them up in block. My college roommate was a career ambassador, and I helped him get assignments and brought a lot of people through in block at the same time. But that was before we did the nuclear option, and so on that basis, I object.
Objection is heard.
Close on this. Look, the reality is if each of these ambassadors was going to be brought up and have to go through cloture and go through the whole process of time or the debate time that would be attributed to each one of them, we would spend the rest of this congressional session doing exactly that. That would not help our national security interests in terms of getting these people in place. I want to get these people in place, and I've limited the requests to countries that have career individuals and to countries that also are critical for our national security. And I just hope that in the national interests of the United States, we can come to a better position at some other time. With that, Madam President, I yield the floor.